Okay, my name is Ron Dawson, and this is Betty Dawson St. John Dawson.
I slept under this quilt at my grandmother's. She had twin beds. She had 3 granddaughters all the same age, and we'd go at the same time. I don't know how she stood it, but it was a real event. But this came from her mother, which was an Armstrong from Hawkins County. And so it was a Bolton Armstrong quilt. And she just used it. I'm surprised it's still intact. She'd wash it and hang it on the line. You know, it's very durable. It's not a I would think this one over here with the squares would be more traditional than this one, because this is just is put on straight on the muslin, you know, and quilted on both sides. I just think it's amazing that they just decided to put little squares down the front, and they have angel wings. So they put some embroidery on it as well as that. That's another reason I like the little Dutch quilt, is they have to put embellishment on it. And I guess my mother loved this quilt. This is the one thing she asked for when my grandmother passed away. This quilt over here is just really interesting in that Ron's Aunt Rusty made it with Ron's grandmother. And so 2 ladies from his family made it. But if you look at it, it goes on the bed like this. So Mrs. Dawson always assumed, I said, okay, where was this in the Dawson house? And of course, she was an in-law. And she said, oh, it was against the wall. So they just made it so that it looked right from the wall out. Are you following me?
So they don't have the selvage on this side. Is that what you're saying?
No. Here's the length of the bed.
So it's like the girls are facing the wrong way.
It should go up and down, okay?
But it was made.
But they made it from the wall out so it looked right. And they could see it.
So when was this one made?
We think probably late 1800s, early 1900s. But it's hand done, and you can tell this is just remnants. I mean, just look at all this little weird colors. They would go to the store and they'd look for bright stuff. And the Dawson family, they ran the general store. So I would say they were able to get more interesting stuff than other people.
Do you want to describe any of these other ones? Or?
This was made by we bought the house next door to us, our first house. Miss Watkins was in her 90s, and she made this for Jay when he was born. And it's the only thing he wants from our house. They live in New York City, and they're very contemporary. I said, well, I'd like a baby to go with the blanket, if you don't mind. He just looks at me and laughs. This one I bought from an estate sale, and it had been her grandmother's also. And it is hand done. But I think what's interesting in it, when you start looking at this, to do this little crow's feet stitch as close and tight as it is would be hard to do if you've done that stitch all the way around all this. This quilt we just bought at Ron's Lord's Acre sale, and a lady in the community had done it, and it's not old. And I think it needs more embellishment, but I think it's interesting. Each piece has a star. Mm-hmm. It has a Christmas tree. It has parts of other patterns on it. Here's the tulip. Here's a rectangle. Mm-hmm. Here's a cross. I mean, here's a moon. She's made up stuff that she wants to put on there for the Lord's Acre sale. And she was the oldest member in Ron's church when we got married. She was in her 90s and lived at the end of the road. And Miss Eunice loved to quilt. But I think she was creative. When I started looking at Here's the Fish, there are lots of religious signs in here. And then a lot of quilting pieces in it. But as far as intricate quilting, it's not as intricate as this one.
Now, back to the quilt pattern on the barn. Okay, there is 2 little boys and 2 little girls opposite each other. George St. John has 4 great-grandchildren. Okay, on the band of each of the girls on the bonnet is the name. One's Abby and one's Olivia. Okay, and on the boys, on the band of their hats, one is Jonathan and one is Burke, which represents his 4 great-grandchildren. Still passing along the history on the sign.